King Cobra. The king cobra doesn't just bite you. It looks at you first, and it genuinely sees you. Native to the forests and plains of South and Southeast Asia, it is the longest venomous snake on Earth, stretching up to 5.5 meters of muscle, scale, and deliberate intelligence. Its scientific name, Ophiophagus hanna, means snake eater, because its primary prey isn't rodents or frogs. It hunts other venomous snakes, tracking them through dense undergrowth with a patience that feels almost personal. In Hindu tradition, the king cobra is draped around Shiva's neck, coiled at the throat of destruction itself, because every culture that lived near this animal understood the same thing. This is not just a predator. This is a presence. When it rears up, it reaches chest height on a grown adult, spreads its hood wide, and holds eye contact. It builds nests, the only snake on Earth known to do so, and guards them with a ferocity that herpetologists describe as maternal. Here's the twist. It is not the most venomous snake in this video. Gram for gram, its toxin is relatively modest. What makes a king cobra bite catastrophic is volume. One strike delivers enough neurotoxin to kill an elephant. The dose is the weapon. It doesn't rattle. It doesn't perform. It simply rises, holds its position, and waits to see what you do next. Survival chance, 35% without antivenom, higher if you have better reflexes than your pride. But awareness is a luxury that assumes you have time to be aware. What comes next closes that window entirely. Black mamba. The black mamba is not black. That's the first thing it lies to you about. Its exterior is gray-brown, the color of dry savanna rock and dead bark, built to disappear into exactly the landscape where you'd be walking without looking down. The black is inside its mouth, a deep, ink-dark warning it displays when cornered, a color so stark against pale gums that witnesses describe it as looking less like an animal and more like an opening into something. Across sub-Saharan Africa, local names for it translate roughly to the shadow of death and the one that doesn't miss, and those aren't metaphors born from exaggeration. The black mamba is the fastest snake on Earth, capable of reaching 20 kilometers per hour over short distances, fast enough to pace a running human across open ground. It doesn't strike once. Documented encounters record up to 12 consecutive strikes, each one injecting fresh neurotoxin, the venom shutting down the nervous system with a speed that makes the hours feel borrowed. Untreated, fatality approaches 100%, death arriving somewhere between 7 and 15 hours after the bite, the body going quiet one system at a time. But here's what nobody mentions in the same breath as those numbers. The black mamba is not aggressive by nature. Every documented case of unprovoked attack examined closely is a case of an animal that was cornered, surprised, or defending a nest. It didn't evolve to kill humans. It evolved to survive everything that tried to kill it. And over millions of years, the cost of backing down became too high to risk. You terrify it first. It just has better follow-through. Survival chance, 20% with antivenom. Assuming the hospital is close, the roads are clear, and someone around you knows what they're looking at. Speed and volume. That's two ways a story ends badly. But the next entry on this list never needed either. It just needed to be the most toxic thing alive, and then disappear somewhere no one would think to look. Inland taipan. The most venomous snake in the world has killed, in all of recorded history, exactly nobody. The inland taipan lives in the Channel Country of Central Australia, a semi-arid expanse of cracked clay and dry riverbeds so remote it barely registers on maps that matter to most people. Formally described by science in 1879, it then vanished from scientific records for nearly a century, rediscovered in 1972 by researchers who had to be told where to look. It has accumulated no mythology, no cultural name steeped in dread, no legend, because the communities near it rarely encountered it. And yet one bite carries enough venom to kill 100 adult humans. Its LD50, the standard measure of lethal dosage, makes it the most toxic venom of any snake ever measured, by a margin that isn't close. It strikes with speed and precision. It is, by every biological metric available, the most dangerous mouth on Earth. It is also almost comically, extraordinarily shy. It avoids confrontation with a consistency that borders on philosophical. The handful of recorded bites have all involved herpetologists handling it directly, and every single one survived with antivenom. This snake spent millions of years developing the most efficient killing mechanism in the animal kingdom, and pointed it at rats in a desert where almost no one goes. It is a perfect and used weapon, the biological equivalent of engineering a nuclear warhead and leaving it in. Somewhere in the Australian outback right now, the most dangerous mouth in existence is trying to eat a small mammal in peace. Survival chance, 100% statistically unless you are a rat or a herpetologist having a difficult afternoon. Maximum lethality. Minimum chaos. But the next entry doesn't have that restraint, and it doesn't need speed, volume, or even the courtesy of announcing itself. Gaboon viper. The gaboon viper is the most beautiful snake alive, and that is not a compliment. It is a warning nobody reads in time. Its scales form an interlocking geometric pattern of warm brown, pale tan, and deep purple that renders it completely invisible against a forest floor covered in dead leaves. A camouflage so precise it looks designed by something that understood aesthetics. It lives across the rainforests and savannas of sub-Saharan Africa, moving slowly, eating infrequently, and spending weeks, sometimes longer, motionless in a single location, waiting. Its fangs are the longest of any snake alive, reaching 5 centimeters, folding against the roof of its mouth until the strike, which lands in milliseconds, the fastest delivery of any viper species. The venom yield per bite is the highest recorded for any snake. Hemotoxic, tissue-destroying, clotting system collapsing. Survivors frequently lose limbs. The gaboon viper is, despite all of this, notably non-aggressive toward humans. The majority of bites are to the feet and lower legs because the majority of bites happen when someone steps on it, which is almost impossible to avoid because you will not see it. It does not chase. It does not posture. It is simply there, beneath the texture of the ground, in the shade of the thing you are about to step past. And then it is a problem that cannot be walked back. You never saw it. That was the whole design. Survival chance. 60% with treatment, which involves looking at what used to be your foot and making a series of retrospective decisions. That was camouflage evolved over millions of years. What comes next doesn't need to hide, because the thing that makes it the most dangerous snake in the world has nothing to do with its venom at all. Saw-scaled viper. You have probably never heard of it. It has probably killed more humans than any other snake on Earth. The saw-scaled viper is small, rarely exceeding 60 centimeters. Sandy-colored, unremarkable in appearance, distributed across a vast corridor stretching from West Africa through the Middle East and deep into the Indian subcontinent. It lives in dry, dusty terrain, in the same fields, pathways, and margins where agricultural communities have worked barefoot for generations. When threatened, it coils into a figure eight and rubs its keeled scales together in a dry, rasping sound. A noise that people in affected regions learn to recognize the way city dwellers learn to recognize a car horn, as a signal that comes right before something bad. It strikes quickly, strikes repeatedly, and does not require extensive provocation. Its venom is hemotoxic and genuinely dangerous. But here is what the death toll is actually about. The saw-scaled viper does not kill more people because evolution made it the most lethal. It kills more people because its range overlaps with dense human populations and inadequate medical infrastructure, in communities that have never had reliable access to antivenom. The snake is the same snake it has always been. The difference is the postcode of the person it bites. This is not a fact about venom. It is a fact about who gets to survive what, and who decided that allocation was acceptable. The numbers don't lie. They just don't tell the story anyone wants to hear. Survival chance varies enormously, not by the snake's biology, but by the nearest hospital's distance and your government's priorities. The saw-scaled viper kills through circumstance and indifference. The next snake kills through something more specific. The exact moment an expert decided they already knew what they were dealing with. Boomslang. Carl Schmidt was one of the most respected herpetologists alive, curator of zoology at the Field Museum of Natural History in Chicago, a man who had handled thousands of snakes across decades of fieldwork. In September 1957, he was bitten by a juvenile boomslang. He recorded the bite in his diary with clinical precision, noted mild symptoms, and went to bed. By the following morning, he was dead. The boomslang, Dysphalidus typus, is a slender tree snake native to sub-Saharan Africa. Its name is Afrikaans for tree snake. Its disposition is mild, its appearance unremarkable, green or brown depending on region, twig thin, slow to provoke. For most of the 20th century, it was classified as harmless to humans. Rear-fanged, requiring deliberate chewing pressure to inject venom, non-aggressive, with documented bites essentially non-existent. The scientific consensus was confident. Schmidt operated within that consensus as any reasonable. The venom, it turns out, is hemotoxic in a way that dismantles the blood's ability to clot entirely. Bleeding begins everywhere simultaneously: gums, eyes, nasal membranes, internal tissue. Schmidt documented his own symptoms in careful notes through the afternoon and evening, believing he had received a sublethal dose, right up until his body began contradicting him. The boomslang did not evolve to punish expertise. It evolved to eat chameleons in trees. But the specific danger of certainty, the moment knowledge becomes assumption, and assumption stops you from treating a bite you have already decided is fine, that is entirely a human design. He was methodical to the end. The snake was not keeping score. That was a snake that killed through confidence. What closes this list doesn't need confidence, camouflage, records, or reputation. It kills through something that shouldn't biologically exist, and science is still deciding what to do about that. Blue Malayan coral snake. Most venom tells your body to stop. This one tells every nerve to fire at once, and then holds the button down. The blue Malayan coral snake, Calliophis bivirgata, is found across the understory of Southeast Asian rainforests, Malaysia, Thailand, Indonesia, Singapore. A small, slender snake with scales so deeply blue-black they absorb light. A head the color of arterial red. A belly that burns the same vivid crimson, displayed when threatened by a slow coiling that exposes the underside like a warning written in a language most things can read. It is rarely encountered. It is rarely studied. For years, it was classified as rear-fanged and medically insignificant. Another understory predator catalogued and filed away. Then researchers examined its venom mechanism. Standard neurotoxins block sodium channels in nerve cells. They shut the signal down, induce paralysis, stop the body's electrical conversation with itself. The blue Malayan coral snake's venom does the opposite. It locks sodium channels permanently open. Every nerve fires simultaneously and continuously. Muscles contract and cannot release. The diaphragm, the muscle that keeps you breathing, seizes. Death is not the stillness of paralysis. It is the opposite of stillness. Every alarm in the body triggered at once, held there with no off switch. There is no anti-venom. Not because the venom works too fast to treat, but because so few bites have been recorded that pharmaceutical development has no commercially viable case to answer. The mechanism is genuinely novel. Researchers have described it as a significant biological discovery. The response from the systems that produce medicine has been, so far, a considered silence. This is not a fact about the snake. The snake is doing exactly what evolution built it to do. In a forest most people will never enter, eating prey most people will never see, carrying a molecular key to a lock that shouldn't exist, in a body the size of a pencil, colored like something that knows it doesn't need to hide. Every snake in this video was dangerous for a different reason. The famous one you misunderstood. The fastest one was only ever defending itself. The most toxic one never bothered anyone. The invisible one required no effort from you at all. The deadliest one is a healthcare failure wearing scales. The expert's mistake was certainty. And the last one is a biological event that nobody in a position to help has decided is worth solving yet. None of these animals evolved to kill humans. Venom is 100 million years of evolution working on problems that had nothing to do with us. Digesting prey, deterring predators, surviving a planet that was already full of things trying to end them. We walked into the frame. We stepped on them, cornered them, handled them with borrowed confidence, built cities over their terrain, and then wrote their names into our nightmares as though they were the ones who showed up uninvited. The fear is real. The danger is real. But the story we tell about who the monster is, that part we wrote ourselves. If you want to see more, click the video on screen now.